The cargo ship Stellar Wind drifted silently through the asteroid field, its hull scarred from countless runs through pirate-infested space. Captain Zara Thorne stood at the observation deck, watching the stars blur past as they jumped to hyperspace. At 17, she was young for a cargo runner, but her family had been in the shipping business for generations. She adjusted her worn leather jacket and checked the manifest on her datapad. Medical supplies for the outer colonies, nothing fancy, but enough to keep the ship running for another month. The Stellar Wind wasn't much to look at, but it was fast and reliable, just like her grandfather had built it to be. "Captain, we've got company," called out her navigator, an old spacer named Pete who'd served with her father years ago. 3 ships, configuration unknown, coming up fast on our port side. Zara frowned and moved to the bridge. Through the view screen, she could see sleek black vessels cutting through space toward them. Their design was unfamiliar, angular and predatory, with weapons ports that gleamed menacingly in the starlight. "Hail them," she ordered, though something in her gut told her this wasn't going to be a friendly encounter. The response came immediately. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a reptilian face with cold yellow eyes and scales that seemed to shimmer in the ship's lighting. The creature wore elaborate armor decorated with what looked like bone fragments. "Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded," the alien commander hissed, his voice carrying an accent Zara couldn't place. "This is Captain Thorne of the Stellar Wind. We're a registered cargo vessel carrying medical supplies to the Outer Rim." "What's the meaning of this?" The alien's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "You carry something far more valuable than medical supplies, young human. You carry yourself." Before Zara could respond, the ship shuddered as tractor beams locked onto their hull. The Stellar Wind's engines whined in protest. But the smaller cargo ship was no match for 3 military-grade vessels. "Pete, send out a distress signal," Zara commanded, her hand moving to the weapon at her hip. "Full encryption emergency protocols." "Already on it, Captain," Pete replied, his fingers flying over the communications console. "Signal's away, but I don't know if anyone's close enough to—" The ship lurched as docking clamps engaged with their airlock. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge as atmospheric seals were breached. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors, accompanied by the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging. "Stay calm, everyone," Zara said to her small crew. "We'll get through this." The bridge doors hissed open and 6 armored figures stormed in, their weapons trained on the humans. Up close, Zara could see they were some kind of reptilian species she'd never encountered before. Their leader, the same one from the screen, stepped forward and gestured with his rifle. "Captain Zara Thorne," he said, pronouncing her name carefully. "You will come with us. Your crew will remain here unharmed, provided they cooperate." "What do you want with me?" Zara demanded, though she didn't move from her position. "You are valuable, human. More valuable than you know. Your family has made many enemies, and some of those enemies are willing to pay handsomely for leverage against them." Zara's blood ran cold. Her family's shipping business was legitimate, but in the outer territories, the line between legal and illegal cargo was often blurred. Still, she couldn't think of anyone who would go to these lengths for revenge or money. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "We're just cargo runners." The alien commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Just cargo runners? Oh, young Thorne, you truly don't know, do you? Your ignorance is almost amusing." He gestured to his soldiers, who moved forward to surround Zara. She considered fighting, but with energy weapons pointed at her crew, she couldn't risk their lives. "Fine," she said, raising her hands. "But if you hurt my people, you'll regret it." "Threats from a cargo captain?" The commander mused. How refreshingly naive. "You'll learn soon enough that your family's reputation extends far beyond simple shipping contracts." As they escorted her from the bridge, Zara caught Pete's eye. The old spacer gave her a barely perceptible nod. She knew he'd find a way to get word out, even if the aliens thought they'd cut all communications. The alien ship was a stark contrast to the comfortable, lived-in feel of the Stellar Wind. Everything was hard angles and cold metal, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. They led her through corridors lined with weapon racks and battle trophies, past viewports that showed the vast emptiness of space. Her cell was small but clean, with basic amenities and a narrow bed. As the energy field activated across the entrance, the commander paused to address her one final time. "Rest well, young Thorne. Tomorrow we begin negotiations with your family." I'm curious to see how much they value your life. You're making a mistake, Zara said quietly. My family doesn't negotiate with kidnappers. We shall see, the alien replied. We shall see. As the corridor lights dimmed and the ship settled into its night cycle, Zara sat on the narrow bed and tried to make sense of what had happened. She'd always known her family had connections throughout the shipping lanes, but this suggested something much deeper and more dangerous. Her grandfather had built their business from nothing, starting with a single ship and expanding over decades to become one of the most reliable cargo services in the sector. Her father had continued that tradition, taking on increasingly challenging and lucrative contracts in the outer territories. But what could they have done to make enemies willing to resort to kidnapping? And why did the alien commander seem so confident that her family would pay for her release? Outside her cell's small viewport, stars wheeled slowly past as the ship changed course. Somewhere out there she knew her family would be looking for her. She just hoped they found her before these aliens discovered that taking a Thorn hostage was a mistake they'd never live to repeat. The question was, what exactly did these creatures think they knew about her family that she didn't? Admiral Marcus Thorn stood in the command center of the battleship Retribution. His weathered hands gripped behind his back as he stared at the holographic display showing ship movements across 3 star systems. At 62, he commanded the respect of every naval officer in the Terran Federation, but right now all that mattered was the safety of his granddaughter. Sir, we've analyzed the distress signal from the stellar wind, reported Commander Sarah Chen, his chief intelligence officer. The encryption was military grade, which means Zara followed emergency protocols perfectly. Marcus nodded grimly. His son James had trained the girl well, even if she didn't know the full extent of her family's connections to the Federation military. To the rest of the galaxy, the Thorns were successful cargo runners. The truth was far more complex. What do we know about the attackers? Marcus asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. The ship configurations match no known fleet in our databases, Chen replied, manipulating the hologram to show the recorded images Pete had managed to transmit before communications were cut. But the energy signatures suggest advanced technology, possibly beyond current Federation standards. Marcus studied the alien vessels with the practiced eye of a career military officer. Their design was efficient, brutal, and unfamiliar. More concerning was the fact that they'd specifically targeted Zara rather than simply pirating the cargo. They knew who she was, he murmured. This wasn't random. Behind him, the command center's doors hissed open. James Thorn strode in, still wearing his civilian clothes but moving with the same military bearing as his father. At 45, James had officially retired from active service to run the family shipping business, but his connections to Federation intelligence remained strong. Dad, I came as soon as I heard, James said, his face drawn with worry. Any word on Zara's location? Nothing yet, Marcus replied, but we're mobilizing everything we have. The Retribution, the Vengeance, and the Nemesis are all moving to intercept. I've also reached out to some of our unofficial contacts. James understood immediately. The Thorn family's shipping business served as cover for a vast intelligence network that spanned the outer territories. Legitimate cargo runs allowed their ships to move freely through regions where military vessels would attract unwanted attention, gathering information on pirate activities, alien movements, and political developments. The Kithra, James said suddenly, studying the alien ship designs. I've seen similar markings in intelligence reports from the Vega sector. Marcus turned sharply. The reptilian warrior caste? I thought they were just rumors. Not anymore, James replied, pulling up classified files on his personal datapad. Intelligence has been tracking increased activity in their territory over the past 6 months. They're expanding their influence, looking for ways to challenge Federation authority in the Outer Rim. Commander Chen stepped forward, her expression troubled. Sir, if these are Kithara, then we're dealing with more than simple pirates. They're a militaristic species that values strength above all else. They wouldn't take a hostage unless they believed it would give them significant leverage. Marcus felt a cold anger building in his chest. The Kithara had made a fundamental miscalculation. They thought they'd captured a simple cargo captain to use as a bargaining chip. They had no idea they'd just declared war on one of the most powerful families in the Terran Federation. Commander Chen, I want full tactical analysis on Kithara military capabilities within the hour. Marcus ordered. James, contact all our assets in the outer territories. I want to know everything about recent Kythera movements. And if they make demands? Chen asked. Marcus's expression hardened. They can make all the demands they want. We don't negotiate with kidnappers. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Kythera command ship Blood Talon, Commander Vex studied the human databases his intelligence team had compiled. The information painted an interesting picture of the Thorn family's shipping empire, but something felt incomplete. The records show extensive shipping operations, reported his second-in-command, a younger Kythera named Kryn. Multiple vessels, routes throughout the outer territories, connections to various governments and corporations. Vex nodded slowly, his claws tapping against the command console. Yet for such a successful operation, their security seems remarkably light. A single cargo ship, minimal escort, standard civilian-grade defenses. Perhaps humans are simply weak, Kryn suggested. Their reputation for avoiding conflict is well documented. Perhaps, Vex mused, though something in his warrior's instincts suggested otherwise. Or perhaps there's more to this family than our intelligence suggests. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare a transmission to the human authorities. We'll start with modest demands and see how they respond. In her cell, Zara had spent the night analyzing everything she could observe about her captors. The Kythera moved with military precision. Their ship was spotlessly maintained, and their equipment was clearly expensive. This wasn't a desperate pirate operation. It was a calculated military action. More troubling was their apparent knowledge of her family. The commander's comments suggested they knew something about the Thorns that even she didn't understand. Her grandfather had always been private about his past, and her father's early career was something he rarely discussed. The cell door's energy field flickered off, and 2 Kythera guards entered. Come, one commanded. Commander Vex wishes to speak with you. They escorted her to what appeared to be a conference room, where the reptilian commander waited at a large table. His armor was polished to a mirror shine, and tribal markings were carved into the metal plates. Captain Thorn, Vex said, gesturing for her to sit across from him. I trust your accommodations are adequate? I've been in worse places, Zara replied evenly, though her heart was racing. I'm sure you have, given your family's business dealings in the outer territories, Vex observed. Tell me, what do you know of your grandfather's service record? The question caught Zara off guard. He was a cargo pilot before starting the company. What does that have to do with anything? Vex's eyes glittered with amusement. A cargo pilot? How quaint. And your father's early career? Same business, different generation, Zara said, though uncertainty was creeping into her voice. Fascinating, Vex mused. It seems your family has kept you remarkably sheltered from certain realities. He activated a holographic display showing star charts and ship movements. We've been monitoring Federation military communications since we took you. The response has been interesting. Zara studied the display, recognizing the tactical formations of a major search and rescue operation, but the scale was enormous, involving multiple battleships and what appeared to be intelligence assets across several systems. That's quite a response for a simple cargo captain, Vex continued. One might almost think you were someone important. As the truth began to dawn on her, Zara realized that her captors were about to discover they'd made a terrible mistake. The question was whether she'd live long enough to see them regret it. The Federation Intelligence Archive, deep beneath Luna's surface, hummed with activity as analysts worked around the clock to track down every piece of information about the Kythera. Director Helen Vasquez, a woman who'd spent 30 years in the shadows protecting humanity's interests, stood before a massive holographic display showing the latest intelligence briefings. The Kythera Dominion has been expanding aggressively for the past 2 years, she explained to the assembled team. They've conquered 4 minor systems and absorbed 3 smaller alien civilizations. Their military doctrine emphasizes overwhelming force and psychological warfare. Admiral Marcus Thorn and his son James listened intently from the secure conference room aboard the Retribution. The connection was encrypted with the highest-level Federation security protocols. What's their weakness? Marcus asked bluntly. Vasquez highlighted several tactical analyses on the display. They're excellent warriors, but they rely heavily on fear and intimidation. They've never faced organized resistance from a major power. Their expansion has been against technologically inferior species. They also have a rigid honor code, added Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the Federation's leading xenobiologist. Strength and hierarchy are everything to them. They respect power, but they despise what they see as weakness. James leaned forward in his chair. So they targeted Zara because they thought we were weak civilian traders. They wanted to prove human inferiority and establish dominance in our shipping lanes. Exactly, Vasquez confirmed. But they had no idea about her real family connections. This isn't just a kidnapping anymore, it's a direct challenge to Federation authority. Back on the Blood Talon, Commander Vex was beginning to realize that his carefully planned operation might be more complicated than anticipated. The human response to their demands had been swift and uncompromising. Complete withdrawal from the sector or face the consequences. Sir, reported Kryn, his scales pale with concern. Our long-range sensors are detecting multiple Federation vessels converging on our position. 3 battleships, several cruisers, and what appears to be a stealth reconnaissance fleet. Vex studied the tactical display with growing unease. The Federation response was massive, far beyond what any reasonable government would commit to rescuing a single cargo captain. Unless that cargo captain was worth more than they'd initially believed. Show me the human fleet composition again, Vex ordered. The hologram displayed the approaching Federation forces. At the center was the battleship Retribution, flagship of Admiral Marcus Thorne. Vex's blood ran cold as he read the identification codes. Thorne, he whispered. The same name as our hostage. Kryn's eyes widened. Sir, you don't think... Run a complete background check on Admiral Marcus Thorne, Vex commanded. Cross-reference with our prisoner's family data. The results appeared within minutes, and they painted a picture that made Vex's stomach sink. Admiral Marcus Thorne, hero of the Battle of Wolf 359, architect of Federation expansion policy, and one of the most decorated military officers in human history. His son, James Thorne, former Federation intelligence operative and current director of the largest civilian shipping network in the Outer Territories, and their granddaughter and daughter, respectively, Captain Zara Thorne, currently sitting in a cell aboard the Blood Talon. We have the granddaughter of the most powerful admiral in the Federation fleet, Vex said slowly, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. In her cell, Zara was putting together pieces of the puzzle she'd never known existed. Her grandfather's reluctance to discuss his past, her father's extensive contacts throughout the galaxy, the way other cargo captains always seemed to defer to Thorne ships even though they were supposedly just another family business. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She wasn't just a cargo captain from a shipping family. She was the granddaughter of one of the most influential people in human space. And her kidnappers had no idea what they'd stumbled into. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication in the corridor outside her cell. She pressed her ear to the wall and listened as one of the guards spoke in rapid Kithra. While she didn't understand the language, the tone was unmistakably panicked. 20 minutes later, Commander Vex appeared at her cell again, but his demeanor had changed completely. Gone was the confident predator who'd gloated about her family's supposed ignorance. Now he looked like someone who'd just realized he'd grabbed a live grenade. Captain Thorne, he said formally, his voice carefully controlled. I believe we need to discuss your family's background in more detail. I thought you already knew everything about us, Zara replied, though she couldn't keep a slight smile from her lips. Vex's claws clicked nervously against his armor. Perhaps our intelligence was incomplete. Your grandfather's military service, for instance. We were under the impression he was a simple cargo pilot. He was, Zara said truthfully, before he became an admiral. The silence stretched between them for long moments. Finally, Vex spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Marcus Thorne. The Marcus Thorne. The very same, Zara confirmed. And my father James used to work for Federation intelligence before he took over the family business. They taught me that knowledge is power, Commander. You should have done better research. Vex stepped back from the cell as if she'd physically struck him. Every Cathera warrior knew the stories of human military prowess, and Admiral Thorne's name was spoken with respect even among their enemies. The man had outmaneuvered entire alien fleets, crushed pirate confederations, and established human dominance across half the galaxy, and they'd just kidnapped his granddaughter. Sir, Kryn's voice echoed down the corridor as he ran toward them. Emergency communication from the Federation fleet. Admiral Thorne is demanding our immediate surrender. Vex closed his eyes and tried to control his breathing. In Cathera culture, Admitting weakness was worse than death, but continuing this course would lead to the destruction of his entire fleet. "What are our options?" he asked quietly. "We could try to negotiate," Kryn suggested. "Use the human as leverage to secure safe passage." Vex looked at Zara through the energy field. She was sitting calmly on her bunk, watching him with eyes that now seemed far older and more dangerous than her 17 years would suggest. "Somehow," Vex said slowly, "I don't think Admiral Thorn is the negotiating type." As if summoned by his words, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A deep, authoritative voice filled the corridors, speaking with the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Kythera vessel. This is Admiral Marcus Thorn of the Federation battleship Retribution. You have exactly 1 hour to release my granddaughter and surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, I will demonstrate why the Federation has remained the dominant power in this galaxy for the past century." The transmission ended, leaving only silence and the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Vex looked at his subordinate, then back at Zara. For the first time in his military career, he was beginning to understand what true fear felt like. The bridge of the Retribution was a study in controlled fury. Admiral Marcus Thorn stood at the center of the command station, his weathered face carved from stone as he watched the countdown timer tick toward 0. Around him, his officers worked with the precision of a finely tuned machine, preparing for what could be the largest military engagement in the Outer Territories in decades. "Status report," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge without him raising it. "All ships report ready." "Sir," replied Captain Morrison, his executive officer. "The Vengeance and Nemesis are in flanking positions. Stealth reconnaissance confirms the Kythera fleet consists of 12 vessels, including 3 heavy cruisers." Marcus nodded grimly. The Kythera had made their choice by not responding to his ultimatum. Now they would face the consequences. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission from the lead Kythera vessel." "Put it through," Marcus ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Vex in what appeared to be a hastily arranged negotiation chamber. The reptilian commander's scales had lost their earlier luster, and his armor seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. "Admiral Thorn," Vex began, his voice carefully measured. "I propose we discuss terms for a peaceful resolution to this situation." Marcus stepped forward, his presence filling the view screen. "Commander, there is only one acceptable resolution: the immediate and unconditional release of my granddaughter, followed by your complete withdrawal from Federation space. Surely we can reach some mutually beneficial arrangement," Vex pressed. "The Kythera Dominion desires no conflict with the Federation. This was merely a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You kidnapped a 17-year-old girl. You threatened her crew. You invaded our territory with military vessels. Commander, the only misunderstanding here is your belief that this is a negotiation." Behind Vex, Zara could see other Kythera officers gathered around communication stations, their body language screaming panic. She'd been moved to what appeared to be their main conference room, ostensibly to facilitate negotiations, but really because they no longer knew what to do with her. "Admiral," Vex tried again, "your granddaughter has been treated well. No harm has come to her. We simply seek acknowledgement of Kythera territorial claims in the Outer Rim." Marcus's laugh was like breaking glass. "Territorial claims? Commander, let me explain something about human territorial policy. We don't acknowledge the sovereignty of kidnappers and pirates. We eliminate them." On the tactical display visible behind Marcus, Vex could see the Federation fleet moving into attack formation. The battleships were massive compared to his own vessels, bristling with weapons that could reduce his entire fleet to debris in minutes. 30 seconds, Commander," Marcus continued. "That's how long you have left to release my granddaughter before I demonstrate why the Kythera Dominion should have stayed in their own territory." Vex looked at Zara, who was watching the exchange with an expression that seemed almost sympathetic. "Your grandfather doesn't seem inclined toward mercy," he observed. "He's never been particularly patient with bullies," Zara replied. "And he really doesn't like people who threaten his family." "You seem remarkably calm for someone whose life hangs in the balance," Vex noted. Zara shrugged. "I'm a thorn. We don't scare easily." The countdown timer on the bridge of the Retribution reached 0. Marcus nodded to his weapons officer. Fire a warning shot across their bow, he ordered. Let them see what they're dealing with. The main guns of the Retribution spoke once, sending a plasma torpedo past the Kythera flagship with meters to spare. The energy discharge lit up space like a miniature star, and the shockwave rattled every ship in the area. That was a demonstration, Marcus announced over the open channel. The next shot will not miss. On the Blood Talon, emergency klaxons wailed as the ship's hull groaned from the concussive force of the near miss. Several Kythera officers were thrown from their positions and sparks flew from overloaded console systems. Sir, Kryn reported, his voice shaking. Our shields wouldn't have stopped that blast. Hull integrity would have been compromised across 3 decks. Vex stared at the tactical display showing the Federation fleet. The humans hadn't even used their full firepower, and they'd nearly crippled his ship with the shockwave alone. This is Admiral Thorn, the human's voice echoed through their bridge. I'm going to count to 10. If my granddaughter isn't on her way back to Federation custody by the time I reach 0, I will open fire with full batteries on every vessel in your fleet. 1. Vex looked around his bridge at his officers. These were veteran warriors who'd conquered star systems and faced death without flinching. Now they were looking at him with something he'd never seen in Kythera eyes before. Terror. 2. Sir, Kryn whispered urgently, we have to surrender. This isn't a battle we can win. 3. Vex's warrior instincts warred with his survival instincts. The Kythera Code demanded that he die fighting rather than submit to human authority, but he was also responsible for the lives of his crew. 4. Commander, Zara said quietly, drawing his attention back to her. My grandfather isn't bluffing. He's fought alien armadas 3 times the size of your fleet and won. You can surrender with honor or you can die for pride. But either way, I'm going home. 5. Vex closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships, stand down weapons, he commanded over the fleet channel. Prepare to transfer the human prisoner to Federation custody. 6. Admiral Thorn, Vex said, opening a communication channel. We are prepared to release your granddaughter. We request safe passage to withdraw from your territory. 7. Marcus paused his count and studied the reptilian commander. Release her first. Then we'll discuss your withdrawal. 8. The energy field around Zara's cell deactivated and 2 Kythera guards gestured for her to follow them. They moved through the ship's corridors in silence, passing crew members who stared at her with a mixture of fear and awe. 9. At the docking bay, a small shuttle was being prepared for launch. Vex himself escorted her to the craft, his armor clanking with each step. Captain Thorn, he said as they reached the shuttle, I want you to know that you were treated according to the highest standards of Kythera military protocol. Zara looked at him for a moment, seeing not a monster but a professional soldier who'd made a tactical error with devastating consequences. Commander, she said quietly, next time you want to take hostages, I'd suggest researching their families first. There will be no next time, Vex replied grimly. The Kythera Dominion will remember this lesson. As the shuttle launched toward the Federation fleet, Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. On the view screen, he could see the small craft approaching, carrying the most precious cargo in the galaxy as far as he was concerned. But this was far from over. The Kythera had crossed a line that would have consequences throughout the sector. The galaxy needed to understand what happened when someone threatened a Thorn, and Marcus intended to make that lesson very clear indeed. The shuttle bay of the Retribution had never felt so important to Admiral Marcus Thorn. As the small craft settled onto the deck plating with a soft hiss of landing thrusters, he stood waiting with his son James and a full honor guard. The moment the shuttle door opened and Zara stepped out, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he'd been carrying for the past 18 hours. Grandpa, Zara said simply, walking toward him with that steady confidence that reminded him so much of her grandmother. Marcus wrapped his granddaughter in a fierce embrace, allowing himself this one moment of purely personal emotion before returning to his duties as a fleet admiral. When he finally released her, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. Are you hurt? He asked, his hands on her shoulders as he studied her face. I'm fine, Zara assured him. They treated me well, all things considered, though I think they were more scared of you than I was of them toward the end. James stepped forward and pulled his daughter into his own embrace. When we got Pete's message, I thought, He didn't finish the sentence, but Zara understood. I know, Dad, but it's over now. Marcus's expression hardened as he shifted back into command mode. Not quite over. Commander Vex is requesting safe passage to leave Federation space, but this incident cannot go unanswered. They moved to the Admiral's private briefing room, where the senior staff had assembled. Captain Morrison, Commander Chen, and several other officers rose as they entered. Report, Marcus ordered as they took their seats. The Kythera fleet is maintaining position, but has powered down weapons, Morrison reported. They're clearly waiting for permission to withdraw, but they're also broadcasting on multiple frequencies to their home territory. Commander Chen activated a holographic display showing intercepts of Kythera communications. They're calling for reinforcements, sir. It appears they're not planning to simply retreat and forget this happened. Marcus studied the data with the practiced eye of someone who'd been reading tactical intelligence for 4 decades. They're going to spin this as a Federation act of aggression, claim we attacked them unprovoked, which means this could escalate into a broader conflict, James observed. The outer territories can't afford a war right now. Zara had been listening quietly, but now she leaned forward. Grandpa, what exactly is our family's role in all this? I mean, I understand you're an admiral and Dad worked for intelligence, but our shipping business... Marcus and James exchanged glances. It was time for Zara to understand the full scope of her heritage. Sit down, sweetheart, Marcus said gently. There are some things we should have told you years ago. Over the next hour, they explained the truth about the Thorn family's position in human space. Marcus's military career hadn't just been distinguished, it had been pivotal in shaping Federation expansion policy. His strategies and victories had established human dominance across dozens of star systems. James's work with Federation intelligence had been equally significant. His network of contacts and information sources stretched across the galaxy, providing crucial intelligence that had prevented 3 separate alien uprisings and exposed numerous espionage operations. And their shipping business wasn't just a legitimate enterprise. It was the largest privately owned intelligence network in the outer territories. Thorn cargo ships were welcome in ports where Federation warships would trigger diplomatic incidents, allowing them to gather information and maintain contacts that the military couldn't. So when the Kythera took me, Zara said slowly, they didn't just kidnap a cargo captain. They kidnapped the granddaughter of the man who shaped modern Federation military doctrine, Marcus confirmed, and the daughter of the person who knows more about alien activities in the Outer Rim than anyone else alive. And they broadcasted their demands across multiple star systems, James added grimly. Every alien government, pirate confederation, and criminal organization in the sector now knows they took a Thorn hostage. Marcus stood and activated the main tactical display, showing the current positions of not just the Kythera fleet, but dozens of other vessels throughout the local systems. Look at this, he said, highlighting various ship movements. The combined Federation Kythera fleet moved through hyperspace like an instrument of divine judgment. Admiral Marcus Thorn stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display that showed 12 human vessels and 12 Kythera ships flying in perfect formation. It was unprecedented in galactic history, and he intended to make sure it sent exactly the message he wanted. Coordinates confirmed. Sir, reported Navigator Lieutenant Wells. We'll drop out of hyperspace at the Shadow Syndicate facility in 30 minutes. Marcus nodded, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the intelligence data Vex had provided. The Syndicate's operation was bigger than anyone had realized, with a hidden base built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in an unclaimed system. From there, they'd been coordinating destabilization efforts across 6 different sectors. Sir, Commander Chen approached with the latest tactical analysis. The asteroid base is heavily fortified. Defense platforms, shield generators, and what appears to be a small fleet of escort vessels. They're not going to surrender easily. I'm not asking them to surrender, Marcus replied coldly. I'm giving them a chance to explain why they thought targeting my family was a good idea, before I turn their base into debris. On the Kythera flagship Blood Talon, Commander Vex was experiencing similar thoughts. The reptilian warrior had spent his career fighting for honor and glory, but this felt different. This was justice, pure and simple, and it felt right in a way that surprised him. Sir, Kryn reported, all weapon systems are ready. The humans have shared their tactical frequencies and our ships are fully integrated into the attack formation. Vex nodded, his claws tapping against the command console. "The Shadow Syndicate made us tools in their game second. Today, we reclaim our honor." Meanwhile, Zara sat in the Retribution's secondary command center with her father, watching the preparations unfold. James had insisted she observe the operation from a safe location, but Marcus had overruled him. "She needs to understand what it means to be a Thorn," the Admiral had said firmly. "This is her education." Now, as she watched two former enemy fleets preparing to work together, Zara was beginning to grasp the full scope of her family's influence. This wasn't just about revenge for her kidnapping. This was about maintaining the delicate balance of power that kept the outer territories from descending into chaos. "Dad," she said quietly, "how often does Grandpa have to make decisions like this?" James looked at his daughter, seeing the same steel in her eyes that had made her grandmother a legend in diplomatic circles. "More often than I'd like, sweetheart. The Federation controls a lot of space, but most people don't realize how thin our actual presence is in the outer territories. Sometimes the appearance of overwhelming force is more important than actually using it. And sometimes," Zara observed, "you have to use it to maintain the appearance." Exactly. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect synchronization, and immediately the Shadow Syndicate base came into view. The asteroid was massive, easily 3 kilometers across, with weapon emplacements and docking bays carved into its surface. Several sleek ships of unknown design were stationed around it, their hulls gleaming with exotic metal alloys. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Marcus Thorn of the Terran Federation," Marcus announced over all frequencies. "You are in violation of interstellar law regarding attacks on civilian vessels and conspiracy to incite warfare between sovereign governments. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." The response came from the asteroid base itself, transmitted by someone whose voice carried the arrogance of someone accustomed to operating from the shadows. "Admiral Thorn, this is Director Caney of the Shadow Syndicate. You have no jurisdiction in unclaimed space and no authority to make demands of a legitimate business operation." Marcus's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "Director Caney, you kidnapped my granddaughter. That gives me all the jurisdiction I need." The silence that followed was telling. Clearly, Caney hadn't expected the Admiral to make the connection between the Kythra operation and the Syndicate so quickly. "Admiral," Caney said finally, his voice more cautious now, "surely we can reach some arrangement. The Syndicate has resources that could benefit the Federation." "The only arrangement I'm interested in," Marcus replied, "is the complete dismantling of your operation and the prosecution of everyone involved in the attack on my family." "That's not going to happen," Caney shot back, and immediately the Syndicate ships powered up their weapons. "You may have numbers, Admiral, but we have technology you've never seen before." The lead Syndicate vessel opened fire, sending a beam of pure energy that should have cut through the Retribution's shields like paper. Instead, the blast scattered harmlessly against barriers that seemed to bend space itself around the Federation flagship. "Interesting," Marcus observed mildly. "Commander Vex, I believe they're trying to intimidate us." "So it would seem, Admiral." Vex's voice came over the communication channel. "Shall we demonstrate proper intimidation techniques?" "By all means." The combined fleet opened fire in a display that lit up the entire system. Federation plasma cannons and Kythera energy weapons struck the asteroid base and its defending ships simultaneously. The Syndicate's exotic technology proved impressive, but ultimately insufficient against the concentrated firepower of two major military forces working in concert. Within minutes, the defending fleet was either destroyed or fleeing toward the edge of the system. The base's shields collapsed under the sustained bombardment, and secondary explosions began to rock the asteroid as internal systems overloaded. "Director Caney," Marcus announced calmly, "I'm going to give you 60 seconds to evacuate your personnel before I demonstrate what happens when someone threatens a Federation citizen. Specifically, what happens when they threaten my granddaughter." The evacuation began immediately, with escape pods and small craft fleeing the doomed base. Marcus watched them go with grim satisfaction. He could have destroyed the facility with everyone inside, but that would have made him no better than the people he was fighting. "Sir," Commander Chen reported, "we're detecting a massive explosion building inside the asteroid. They're trying to destroy their data cores." "Jam their transmissions," Marcus ordered. "If they can't coordinate the destruction sequence, we might salvage some useful intelligence." The Retribution's electronic warfare systems went to work. flooding the local space with interference that prevented the syndicate from completing their data purge. When the final explosion came, it was contained enough that large sections of the base remained intact. "All ships, prepare boarding parties," Marcus commanded. "I want every piece of data, every communication log, and every financial record recovered from that base." As the combined Federation Kythera teams prepared for the salvage operation, Zara watched from the command center with new understanding. This wasn't just about punishing the people who'd kidnapped her. It was about sending a message to every criminal organization, hostile government, and would-be conqueror in the galaxy. The message was simple: the Thorns, and by extension the Federation, were not to be trifled with. But as she studied the debris field floating around the shattered asteroid, Zara realized that this was also just the beginning. The Shadow Syndicate was clearly much larger than this single operation, and their willingness to manipulate entire civilizations meant the threat was far from over. "Dad," she said quietly, "this isn't finished, is it?" James looked at his daughter with pride and sadness. She was growing up faster than he would have liked, but she was definitely a thorn. "No, sweetheart," he replied. "This is just the opening move in a much larger game. But now they know we're playing." 3 months after the destruction of the Shadow Syndicate base, the galaxy had settled into a new equilibrium. The footage of Federation and Kythera ships fighting side by side had spread across every inhabited system, carrying a message that resonated far beyond the intended audience. Mess with humanity's allies, and you answer to humanity itself. Captain Zara Thorne stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Stellar Wind II, watching the stars wheel past as her ship dropped out of hyperspace near the Kepler Station trading hub. The new vessel was larger and better armed than her old cargo hauler, but she'd insisted on keeping the same name. Some traditions were worth maintaining. "Captain," called her new first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, a former Federation Navy officer who'd requested transfer to the Thorn shipping fleet. "Station Control is requesting our approach vector and cargo manifest." "Send them the standard commercial approach," Zara replied, though she knew there was nothing standard about her cargo runs anymore. The Thorn shipping network had officially expanded into security consulting and diplomatic transportation, which was a polite way of saying they now carried the most sensitive cargo and passengers in the outer territories. Her comm system chimed with an encrypted transmission from her grandfather. Admiral Marcus Thorne's face appeared on her private screen, looking as stern and competent as ever. "Zara, how's the new ship handling?" he asked without preamble. "Like a dream, Grandpa. The Kythera engine modifications are incredible. We're getting 30% better speed and efficiency than the old design." Marcus nodded with satisfaction. The technology-sharing agreement with the Kythera Dominion had been one of the unexpected benefits of their alliance against the Shadow Syndicate. Commander Vex had proven to be not just an honorable opponent, but a valuable ally in the ongoing investigation into Syndicate operations. "Any problems with the crew integration?" Marcus asked. Zara glanced around her bridge where human and Kythera officers worked side by side with the easy efficiency of a well-trained team. "None at all. Kryn has been an excellent tactical officer, and his knowledge of Outer Rim navigation has already saved us 2 days on this run." The presence of Kythera crew members on human ships had been controversial at first, but the practical benefits were undeniable. The reptilian species' natural aggression made them excellent security personnel, while their cultural emphasis on honor meant they were absolutely trustworthy once they gave their word. "Good," Marcus replied, "because I have something special for your next assignment." The transmission included a data packet with details that made Zara's eyes widen. Her next cargo run would carry the Etherian ambassador to the Federation Council meetings on Earth. The Etherians were one of the most technologically advanced races in the galaxy, but they rarely interacted with other species due to their delicate biology and complex cultural requirements. "They specifically requested a Thorn ship," Marcus explained. "Apparently our reputation for getting cargo through safely has reached some very high places. Or they heard about what happened to the last people who tried to hijack one of our ships," Zara said with a slight smile. Marcus's expression grew more serious. "There's something else. Intelligence suggests the Shadow Syndicate is planning something for the council meetings. We've detected increased activity in several systems, and there are rumors of a major operation being planned." "Do we know what they're targeting?" "No, but the timing is suspicious. The Council is voting on new trade regulations that would severely limit the Syndicate's ability to operate in legal gray areas. If they can disrupt the meetings or eliminate key delegates, Zara understood immediately. They could prevent the vote and maintain their current operations. Exactly. Which is why I'm assigning a full escort to your mission. The Vengeance will accompany you to Earth, and Commander Vex is bringing 3 Kythera ships as additional security. The idea of traveling with such a massive escort would have seemed absurd a year ago. Now it felt appropriate. The Thorn name carried weight throughout the galaxy, but that weight also made them targets for anyone looking to make a statement. "Sir?" Lieutenant Kim called out. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Kepler Station. They're reporting suspicious ship activity in the outer system." Zara felt her pulse quicken. "Put it through." The station commander's image appeared on the main screen, his face tight with concern. "Captain Thorn, we've detected 6 unidentified vessels on the edge of our sensor range. They're maintaining position but not responding to hails." "Ship configurations?" Zara asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew the answer. "Unknown designs, similar to the ones in the intelligence briefings about Shadow Syndicate vessels." Zara looked at her grandfather's image on her private screen. Marcus's expression had shifted into the cold focus of a career military officer. "Grandpa," she said quietly, "I think they found us." "It appears so," Marcus replied grimly, "but this time, we're ready for them." Within minutes, the space around Kepler Station transformed from a peaceful trading hub into a military staging area. The Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of twisted light, followed immediately by 3 Kythera heavy cruisers. Additional Federation ships began arriving from patrol routes throughout the system. Commander Vex's voice came over the communication channel, his tone carrying the satisfaction of a warrior preparing for battle. "Admiral Thorn, Captain Thorn, it appears our enemies have decided to reveal themselves." "So it would seem," Marcus replied. "Commander, are your ships ready to demonstrate Kythera tactical superiority once again?" "With great enthusiasm, Admiral." The Shadow Syndicate ships had clearly not expected such a rapid response. Their formation scattered as they realized they were facing a combined fleet rather than a single cargo vessel. But instead of fleeing, they regrouped and moved into attack formation. "They're not running," Zara observed. "They must really want to stop this diplomatic mission. Or they're desperate enough to try anything," her father's voice added as James Thorne's ship, the Resolution, joined the growing fleet. "Intelligence reports suggest the Syndicate is facing financial pressure from the increased security measures we've implemented. They need a big win to maintain their operations." "Then let's make sure they don't get one," Zara said firmly. The battle, when it came, was swift and decisive. The Shadow Syndicate ships were individually powerful, but they were facing coordinated forces with superior numbers and tactical experience. The combination of Federation firepower and Kythera aggression proved devastating. But as the last Syndicate vessel exploded in a burst of exotic radiation, Zara realized that something had changed. This wasn't just about her kidnapping anymore, or even about the Shadow Syndicate's criminal activities. Word of the engagement would spread throughout the galaxy within hours. Every hostile force, every potential aggressor, every criminal organization would learn the same lesson. The Thorns, and by extension their allies, were not just protected by the Federation military. They were protected by something new and unprecedented. A multi-species alliance built on mutual respect and shared interests. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported, "all Syndicate vessels have been destroyed or disabled. Station security is moving to secure any survivors." Zara nodded, but her attention was focused on the larger implications. Her grandfather had spent decades building the Federation's reputation through strength and diplomacy. Now, in the span of a few months, that reputation had evolved into something greater. "Admiral," she said to her grandfather over the private channel, "I think we just changed the balance of power in the galaxy." Marcus Thorn smiled with the satisfaction of a strategist whose long-term planning had finally come to fruition. "That was always the plan, granddaughter. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for it." As the combined fleet escorted the Stellar Wind 2 toward Earth, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed since that day the Kythera had taken her hostage. They'd thought they were capturing a simple cargo captain to use as leverage against her family. Instead, they'd accidentally created the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. And they'd learned, too late, why you should never, ever, threaten a Thorn. The stars wheeled on, carrying the news of humanity's expanding influence to every corner of the galaxy. And in the cargo holds of the Thorn fleet, the future of interstellar diplomacy continued its journey toward a destiny that would reshape the cosmos itself. The Shadow Syndicate had made their last mistake. But for the Thorns, this was just the beginning.